Good morning and welcome to Edify with Eide. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, a special welcome to you. My name is Eide. I'm the host for Edify with Eide, a podcast about entrepreneurship, technology, and leadership. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and download Podbean for free on your iOS or Android device. Search for Edify with Eide and give us a follow so that you don't miss any future episodes. Before we move on to our very interesting guest and topic for today, I would just like to mention that Edify with Eide is proudly sponsored by ascendonline, enabling industry leaders a digital transformation and innovation agency, of which myself and my husband, Johan van Zyl, are co-founders. So if you are tired for those daily repetitive tasks and would rather be focusing on your business, clients, and generating revenue, of course, give us a call on 066 544 6891 or send us an email to hello@ascendonlinedsc.com. You are also very welcome to follow us or make contact with us on our social media platforms. We are on Clubhouse at Eide Ascend, on YouTube at Ascend Online, on Facebook at Ascend Online Digital, on LinkedIn, you can either go and search for Ascend Online, myself, Eide van Zyl, or my husband, Johan van Zyl, and send us a direct message. And then, as I said, our podcast is on Podbean under Edify with Eide. You are also welcome to scan our little QR code on our background if you are watching this on YouTube, and then send us an email in that respect. So let's talk about our guest and topic today. So today we have a very interesting guest. She is the fifth guest in our Inspirational Woman in Business series. Her name is Serisha Barrat. She's originally from Johannesburg, but she's been in Cape Town for the last 5 years. She has 2 qualifications in the bag and originally focused on entertainment and media law, and thereafter dabbled in the corporate, financial, legal, and data analytics industry. Thereafter, she started her own marketing company, and subsequently she attended the World Economic Forum in 2019, where they spoke about digitizing the legal field or legal industry. And that is where her new idea and platform that she's busy developing called Lawyered Up originated from. And she'll be telling us a bit more about that in a second. To come to our topic today, we decided to talk about the role of technology in the current legal industry in South Africa and how legal practitioners and members of public alike can use legal technology to their benefit. We will also subsequently be discussing what the legal tech future looks like in South Africa. So we will be dabbling with that idea in a bit. So let's go over to our guest. Serisha, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
So much for having me on here.
It's a pleasure. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's nice and done some homework today and gone through, a couple of articles and see what's going on in the legal tech space in South Africa and, those types of things. And what I was very transparent is there's obviously it's an amazingly really emerging trend in South Africa. So, there's definitely a market for it, but seemingly what the problem is that especially legal practitioners think that they need to be really tech savvy to kind of start using these tools, and that's what's kind of prohibiting them from using it.
I also think it's a generational thing whereby our generation is more comfortable with having this and then accessing this compared to previous generations. Yes. Whereby they want that one-to-one and personal interaction. But I also think it's a preference thing. Yeah. So I do think that COVID came in and kind of pushed the legal side of things in the direction of going digital and having no other choice but to go digital. Accessibility was a huge thing, digital signatures, a huge thing. Working with the deeds office and seeing how backdated and how long they take for a specific procedure. I just think that digitizing it would make it so much better and so much simpler.
For sure. I think something that also is prohibiting us from kind of moving on to the more digitized part of, and using that in our practices is the inconsistency of what is acceptable and not in jurisdiction to jurisdiction. For example, I would understand that some jurisdictions would accept a digital certificate from the post office for sending registered emails. But in another jurisdiction, the magistrate won't even kind of hear the matter and say, you know, but these documents aren't sufficient. Even though it's, as I said, a certified document from the post office to say that, you know, this letter of demand or whatever the situation might be was sent via registered email, which they can confirm, you know, so those electronic certificates, and I think the Electronic Communications on Transactions Act has a lot to do with it. I mean, if you look at the act in itself, it's very short. It's not, you know, comprehensive at all. So I think these older practitioners are kind of still very much in a phase where they're like, let's go with what we know and what we trust and what we know the local magistrate would accept, if you understand what I'm saying.
It's been this way for generations and generations, and that's what they're used to, that's what they're comfortable with. Yeah. But I also understand why it is that way, because you are dealing with people's private property, personal and confidential information. So we look at how POPI Act has also come into play and seeing how every business needs to be compliant. And I actually quite like how CIPC is also trying to fill in those gaps of saying, okay, well, you need to be POPI compliant in order to actually go out there, be on the JSE and do business. So what I found while doing research in terms of CIPC, there was many loopholes. So when you look at what's required in a startup or in a small business when you start, it's absolute minimum in South Africa. You don't have to be a fully compliant business in order to be registered and possibly on the JSE. If you're making enough money to pay whatever you need to in terms of a penalty, South Africa allows it. So there's a lot that may be acceptable abroad because of the legalities around small businesses, because of the legalities around protecting people's information compared to South Africa. It costs us under 300 Rand to open a company. Nowhere around the world does it cost that amount of money.
And it's also fairly easy to kind of apply to open a company. There's not much really in respect of documentation or the person's history that's taken into consideration, you know, when actually opening or registering a business. You know, so I mean, when we registered our company, it's your director's ID is a proof of residence and the completed you know, form for the CIPC, and that was about it. But I mean, other than that, and obviously the name that we wanted. So other than that, there's really not much. I understand it's a very I do also understand, if I had to play devil's advocate now, the other side of the coin, in respect of you kind of don't want too much red tape. For entrepreneurs, kind of to prohibit them or to kind of hurdle them in opening a business, but in a time and place where personal information has become such a sensitive topic. You know, I understand why legal practitioners have this kind of anxiety when it comes to online information and their databases being safe and compliant and all those types of things. But
that's why they're not looking into paperless, because they're scared that this is so easily accessed in terms of scams, in terms of anything that's online. You can buy people's data, and that's scary.
And it's sold so easily these days in practice as well. So yeah, it's very interesting when I read up about, you know, the new emerging technologies, especially in the legal field in South Africa. There was actually one that addressed this particular issue where they spoke about, you know, the main reason why legal practitioners aren't digitizing their practices is because of the fact that they're scared what will happen to data if it's breached or hacked. And I mean, you know, a lot of companies are, the most recent one that I can think of being Experian. You know, their database being compromised and, you know, personal information like ID numbers and addresses being accessed by the hacker. And I mean, they are a credit bureau. So, I mean, you would think that a company like that would have these stringent measures in place to kind of protect your personal information, but, you know, you still get your odd person, you know, sending you an SMS with this amazing competition that you just won 10 million pounds in.
Yes. And some of the stuff is even spelled incorrectly, you know, and then you think, how is this even possible that people are falling into this? But
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to, being not educated as well.
Yeah.
So I think if people are more educated around these scams, number one, around your POPI Act, around data protection, actually reading your policies. When you download an app, 11 out of 10 people don't look at, they're clicking on accept. They don't look at what they accepting. They don't look at data protection. They don't look at what information is being sold and what information they can actually extract from conversations and keywords and all of these things. So
I think also, Serisha, I think the average consumer is really not actually in a bargaining position to kind of bargain for these types of things, because if you just think about it for a second, practically speaking, if you go onto your Play Store, if you go onto your Apple Store, right, if you want to download an app, there's no space to say I agree to this and this and this term, but I don't accept this and this and this term.
So
if you want that app, it's either or.
You're not.
Yes, 100%. So I think the consumer is really at the short end of this stick in respect of it's there's no bargaining chip. It's a situation of either you accept all our terms inclusively as we want them, or you go without our application and it's your kind of loss. They're not really concerned about this at the end of the day. Yeah. So there's a lot. It's a very interesting topic, but yeah.
What is your thoughts around digital, or rather not digital, but legal being less important than your accounting firm? Because when people open a business, they think about, I need to be accounting compliant, but why is it not the same energy for legal? And it's something that's really been like a bother with a lot of individuals that I've spoken to, just based on SurveyMonkey and based on like people's opinions on, are you going to actually use a legal app that's on your phone? Are you going to have the same issues of privacy, as well as just being so used to wanting to see a legal practitioner in comparison to having an invoicing system that's on your phone and an app?
100%.
Or having an accountant, a bookkeeper on your phone, So why has legal not kind of shifted in that direction?
If I had a hunch, right, what I think is the situation, if you look at compliance in respect of your bookkeeping and your tax and your audits and those types of things, it's like many government institutions, some are imposed more stricter than others. I mean, if you look at SARS, for example, in respect of tax compliance and batch registration and those types of things, they are very much more on the ball than, if you think about the insurance industry, for example, there's a bunch of ombudsmen that you can go to. Yes, there is a consumer ombudsman that you can go to if you had, like, say, a data breach or, et cetera. But just to give you a bit of background, I was a legal counsel for LegalWise, both in the insurance department and working with, with your public day-to-day. And I had that a lot. But so my job was to actually submit these complaints to those ombudsmen. And if I can tell you the difference, just night and day, if I had submitted a claim to an insurance ombudsman, whether or not short or long, versus submitting a claim to the consumer ombudsman, it's such an ineffective process.
Absolutely. But
yeah.
How was your turnaround time in terms of, are they quick in responding, or was it just a tedious, long process?
So a lot of them say, let's say, for example, so number one, the first issue is the number of forms or documents that the person had to complete to actually submit their complaint, right? A lot of the forms would ask your basic details, but then you literally had to write an essay about with dates and people's names and contact numbers and times, like almost like an essay about what your complaint was about and what you'd experienced. You couldn't fax the documents. At some stage you could then fax the documents, but before that you had to physically send it via post. And we all know how the South African post office is. So you had the opportunity of your documents getting lost. If you did have documents, you could make certified copies, which is also sometimes a headache. And then it was a situation of normally these complaint forms would say, don't contact us within the first 60 days after submitting your complaint. Then
because I had 2 months to wait for a reply.
Exactly. Then you had to, and in the meantime, whoever has your data or has been harassing you are free to do so until this, situation has been sorted out. Now, just to give you a common example, right? You would have your typical person that might not had matriculated, for example, that are not able to read and write sometimes, and those were a lot of our clients, and that's why they came to us. So to explain to this person that you need to sit with me and tell me right from the beginning who you spoke to, what the reference was, how are they supposed to write down a reference if they can't even read or write, for example? So, I mean, and then at the end of the day, I had files that were almost 2 years old, where you would just every month the same action. You would send them an email with the only contact person you've ever had contact with in the last 2 years, and say, listen, I just want to follow up. What's going on with this? And there's nobody else to report these people to. It's not a matter that you could then go and litigate in court. And you could forget about getting hold or being in contact telephonically with these people. So, I mean, what is the consumer's recourse then? And that to me was what was unfair, because how do I then help them? The main thing.
I mean, I think that's one of the main reasons why we also started Lloyd Up is accessibility, affordability. We don't just want to say we're this great app, but then how are we accessing individuals that maybe don't have a phone that you're able to download an app? Are we going to have a number that you can contact for things like gender-based violence, for rape victims? So we've definitely considered both parts of things. In terms of affordability, you're cutting down on people's work time to get to work. Firstly, you're cutting down on the expenses for them to get to work. So if you're able to work remotely, you can also charge a bit less because you are exactly where you are. You're not moving to be billing individuals. So we've considered job opportunities in terms of getting like freelance attorneys to come on board, because post articles it's been so difficult to be retained.
Yes,
and
especially now. Yeah,
exactly. We've considered accessibility, we've considered affordability. So we are here to assist those individuals that may not have access as a normal individual could to maybe go to your top 5 firms or your medium firms. We're here to say we're open to all types of individuals, your lower class, your middle class, your higher class, and also just giving individuals an opportunity to work from wherever they are. And I think more than anything, COVID has caused turmoil when it comes to that. You don't have a choice right now. Most individuals have cut down on office costs. So we're also cutting down on office costs, which means that our services offered can then be cheaper. We're saying you don't have to be paying legal fees and billed per hour. You can have a document that is going to be pre-populated with information that you put in originally. So we're also doing a thing where it will be able to hover over information. So it helps individuals if they maybe don't know how to fill in a document. So it's really just all about accessibility for us. If you are in a panic and you can't write down a statement, voice record it, because it will be able to be stored. But the problem with that is the data being protected? So that's our next step in the process of seeing that all data that is stored is data that's allowed to be stored. And I mean, if I look at 4 years ago, digital signatures was never a thing that was even considered, you know?
For sure, yeah. Because it was always in question. Because it was always in question, you know, is it actually the person sitting behind the computer giving that digital signature? Whereas, you know, your normal one where you could see the person signing. Yeah, Serisha, I want to come back quickly to you, and it's a very important point that you brought up in respect of legal billing and legal fees, and the fact that technically speaking, if an attorney is using less resources, then, you know, if you think about it, your fees should be lower because, you know, in respect of travel expenses, you know, physical consultations, all those types of things. I want to talk about a legal software that recently came out, Legal Lens, and it was found by two admitted attorneys, Catherine Jane Paulson and Joshua Davidson. And their issue was exactly that. They wanted to cut down on, very often, attorneys are stereotyped for their legal fees. They are.
That's a big thing.
Overbilling, and exactly. So
as
their
an individual, that doesn't have much knowledge.
Exactly.
I'm scared to even want to know what is an NDA. This is probably going to cost me large amounts of money. What is an MOU? What is a shareholders? And these are things that should be standard, in every startup, in every small business. When you register your business, this is something that you need to understand. Why do I need a share certificate? Why do I need an MOU, an MOI, a term sheet? Why do I need a contract if I'm just a freelancer and I'm invoicing someone? And this is where I'm coming into play, because I'm saying, if you are a freelancer and you are unfairly paid in any way, or not giving benefits that you should be given, and you're not aware of the law, chat to us. Tell us what your concern is, because we're not going to be billing you large amounts of money. We're here to give access. We're here to provide you with affordability, an affordable, great service. And just because we're cheaper, that perception of not having proper vetted lawyers also needs to fall, because we have a great vetting process. You'd have to go through a channel of questions and vetting and an interview, just like you would for any other law firm, but everything is just done digitally.
Yeah, and I think it's a very important conversation to have, especially like I just introduced to our audience, the topic for today being, what is the role and benefits of legal tech in South Africa, not only for legal firms and practices, but also for, your general public. And I think technology has a really big role to play in future, especially in respects of things like billing, because if you look at, for example, just referring to this article about Legal Lens, the recent discussion paper about the South African Law Reform Commission regarding its investigation into legal fees, and how excessively lawyers tend to bill for every little thing and what they might not necessarily would have been entitled to. What is your perspective on the role that technology is to play in almost like this safety net for, the public in South Africa?
So firstly, I feel like if you don't have paper costs, right? So you build for paper costs, you build for your last paper clip, you build for the folder, you build for every minute that you've spoken to your attorney.
Every folio.
Every email sent. I completely get it. We study for a long time. I've been studying for 11 years now. And you always having to build on your knowledge, because the law is always changing. So I'm not taking away from the fact that you need to build. I'm not taking away from the fact that you need to be able to charge based on the amount of hours that you've put in. But if you have a template, and this is just in no way putting other lawyers down, because I am myself a legal practitioner, but I've gone more digital now. So if you have a template, let's look at an NDA, for example, and it's a template that's pre-drafted and you're changing by far, it's taking you 10 minutes to do. Why are we billing a client for 4 hours? Because all that's doing is taking away from individuals that really need the help. So if you're saying you're there to help individuals, why are you not actually helping them? I mean, I completely get monetary gain and monetization. We are also looking at different avenues of monetization, but it almost just becomes very unfair. I've worked in legal corporate, where I've worked at your financial institutes. I then worked at smaller firms. I've worked at legal consultancies, and they are so picky about fee splits, about shares, about how much they need to bill for their last paperclip, for every printout. But what if there was no paper and we went paperless? I mean, it's also helping in terms of global warming. Why aren't we thinking of these things? Why is the deeds office still going by having a document with 1,000 pages? And
I
now
actually,
I'm walking into court.
I actually just wanted to mention that I saw just to cut into that, I saw a picture on LinkedIn yesterday. I'm not going to mention the attorney firm's names, but it was a constitutional court matter. So I 100% understand, you know, kind of the print work and the paperwork that needs to go into those types of situations. But I kid you not, if there was about 100,000 pages on that table, I wouldn't be surprised. It was absolutely insane. And
it's sitting like this. And
I mean, it was like this. And there was about, I would say, roughly 20 these size bundles. And I was just sitting there, and I mean, being, you know, having been in legal practice and all those types of things, I just sat there and I think, wow, you know, having a look at it and saying, that's absolutely insane. And after it's all said and done, it goes into your record keeping and then it's destroyed.
And then it's placed there for 10 years. And God forbid the deeds office catches on light. What happens then?
Yeah,
you know, so
yeah.
I also feel like that's why they're billing you for their every last paperclip, because they're utilizing these things. And I get it, but what if we cut down on that? Can we cut down on costs? Can we make it more affordable for your normal individual to actually say, I need legal services now. I've been treated unfairly, because with legal fees being so high, it really just comes down to being treated unfairly, not knowing your rights, not knowing what can I do, what can't I do, and it puts you at a disadvantage. So are we helping by putting people at a disadvantage, or are we helping for the sake of helping?
I mean, Serisha, if we just for a second, you know, go and look at the United States, you know, kind of operating system that they use in their justice system. I mean, everything's online. You can go onto any state's Justice Department's website as we speak. If you know the case number, you can put the case number in onto their website, and you as a member of public can have full access to all the records that aren't
publicly accessible.
So, but that's my thing is, number one, isn't it your right to have access to these types of things? And then, you know, number two, do you think this is something that kind of will move on as the older generation kind of phases out? And my points of reference is as follows, right? In 2019, the Law Society of South Africa's Young Lawyers survey, they found that 74% of lawyers under the age of 35 use some other type of legal technology platform in their everyday practice already. And I mean, so 74% is quite a good number. Do you think this is something that will just eventually phase out, and the newer generation would say, you know, we know what the benefits are, we know how much fairer and the more justice we will be able to give to people, let's do this? And then the second question to you would be, take into consideration this is South Africa, which is infamous for maladministration of resources, especially public resources. Do you think it's practically possible to run something like that successfully here?
So I want to be optimistic and say that I don't think anything is impossible at this stage. And I say that because of how much innovation and technology has just developed and increased and gotten better by the day and by the month. And we've all had to adapt our lifestyles, our working situations, how we do things, how we're signing documents, where we're storing them based on a global pandemic. So I think I would be optimistic and say that it is a possibility. I'm not giving a duration of how long it's going to take us to get there, but I do think that we are heading in a direction of becoming more digital across every industry. I mean, we look at design, marketing, there's apps to do so much now. You know, we look at accounting, legal, psychology, you know, in every field and area, we have an app that's being developed. So just like apps are being developed in that regard, our systems can get better. And in bettering our systems with more individuals studying engineering, more individuals that are studying about technology and innovation and digitizing Africa and South Africa and globally. AI, fourth industrial revolution, on a whole. We are heading in the direction of a huge change. But like I started with this conversation, it really comes down to generation.
I think it's also, I think it's also a situation. I mean, the first thing you learn in your first year of law is that everything works on precedent, right? So I think also as this will be implemented internationally, this will eventually, it will infiltrate, your local courts, your high courts, and it will infiltrate what becomes the new precedent and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And
courts are digital.
And where the line is going to be drawn. But I wanted to come to another topic that I found very interesting. When we talk about social media and platforms, and especially our generation, we are very much focused on instant gratification. So, looking at Lawyered Up, your platform that you guys are currently creating, and a couple of others out there, there is a huge list of these types of technologies that are very much emerging from South Africa, especially. Where they are very much focused on online accessibility to legal services. What is your message to the traditional law firm when it comes to the fact that the people that are most likely to be their clients today and tomorrow and in the foreseeable future? Do you think it's going to become it needs to become a bigger focus for your traditional law firms, kind of giving that instant gratification? Look, it will obviously eventually lead to the saturation of the markets in that field. But what do you think? Do you think that your business to customer relationship is going to be more focused on instant gratification, having immediate access to legal advice and documents?
Definitely. So I think my message to them would be that you have to start moving away from your traditional way of doing things.
Like good old fax machine.
Like the good old fax machine needs to go. You can literally use your phone and scan your document that's written, that turns into a PDF and sent via your cell phone, or uploaded onto a server, an app, and is then sent so that it is encrypted and safe. Yes. So I do feel like, or what I've noticed rather, firms have started looking at an e-commerce way of doing documents.
Yes.
And you have to do that, because I can look online and type in NDA and I'm going to get tons of NDAs. Yes, of course, they're not vetted, but then our platform allows you to upload your pre-existing legal document for us to vet for you. So I really just think everything is going digital right now. And if you're not moving digital, especially being in legal, you're going to be moving backwards. Our next millionaires and billionaires are founders of startups that are scalable. And the startup space is just growing. Or maybe I wouldn't say now it's only growing, but I think it's becoming more accessible, more noticed, and more learned on.
I think it's a situation of, I attended a AI and automation webinar via Zoom that took place, held by MIT professors and so on, but it was based in India. And I asked one of the professors a question that I often struggled with, and especially when we started ascendonline, because we are a digital transformation and innovation agency. So my biggest problem that I often experience is that I need the buy-in from senior stakeholders in a company, because they are the people that will drive these solutions, right? And I asked this professor from MIT and I said, I come from South Africa, and I realized that people have actually now seen, because automation and AI and RPA has been a big thing in India for a very long time. I mean, they are the industry leaders on this at the moment as we speak. I said, so obviously we are years behind in respect of people's understanding of what the benefits are of digitizing your processes and using automation and artificial intelligence, machine learning, all those types of things. So I said, what would your advice be for me as a business owner trying to drive these types of things in our South African industry, to convince stakeholders that this is a good idea. And his answer was so simple, but it was absolutely genius. He said, Eide, you only need to ask them one question. What is the risk of not implementing and embracing technology? As simple as that.
Yes.
And obviously you can take that thought further to say that what would happen if your competitor next door, because let's be honest, there's a legal firm on every corner, especially here in Cape Town.
Yes.
What would happen to you as a firm if the next 5 legal firms on the other blocks does take advantage of digitizing their processes and going online?
I see it happening quickly, hey. I've seen so many individuals going the route of an e-commerce website now. You know, just go on, buy your document, check out, and Bob's your uncle. But I do feel like what is differentiating me at that point is we do have that 24-hour legal assistance where once you do purchase that document, we assist you in filling it, and we can vet it in that process, whereby we're saying, okay, this is fine, this is what she missed out, this is what she
I just wanted to ask you that question. You now having this legal background and having this legal platform, right? So often a lot of people don't want to use this platform for one reason. They still want that human touch or that human element behind this online purchase. So what would you say now in your experience? You just mentioned, you know, having that person available 24/7 that they can contact and they can assist them and those types of things. What do you think is a way for legal practitioners to work around that? Because obviously it's like talking to a financial planner. You know, they're going to work with my money, so I want to trust this person, and the only way I can do this is actually having contact with them, whether or not that's in a consultation, a physical consultation, whether or not that's via Zoom. So I would say it's the same with your attorney or your lawyer. You know, you are sharing this very personal, often emotional matter with them that you need assistance with. What do you think are ways that legal practitioners can work around that, i.e. still reserving that personal relationship with their clients, but giving them this optimal digital experience in respect of their matter legally?
So I feel like every sort of technology that has come out does need to have that human element feel to it. So, example, on the app, you're able to voice note like you would on WhatsApp, for example, but everything would still be kept because it can be used as evidence if needed. So everything is traceable, everything is tracked. So if I can voice note my attorney, firstly, it's starting to make me feel more comfortable because it's something that's tradition to me. You know, it's something that I'm used to and how I communicate.
You do it every day. Yeah, you do it every day. You send voice notes every day. Yeah, 100%.
It gives me the ease of saying, I can voice note my attorney right now. I have a meeting and I need assistance quickly with an NDA. I can log into my app, download an NDA, put in counterparty's details while I'm with the counterparty, sign it on app, and if I need legal assistance, be billed via the wallet on my app, and voice note my attorney and say, hi, what do you think of the situation? Please, can you voice note me back? And think about it as Uber for lawyers. You know, you request a lawyer now and you have someone that can assist you based on affordability. Do you want a lawyer that is more experienced? Are you fine with a candidate attorney? Are you fine with someone that has 4 years experience? Or do you want someone that is a guru in their field, you know? So it's really just comes down to how much can you afford? What is your affordability in terms of that specific scenario? Is it urgent? Is for more affordable price? And we want to be there to help those individuals more than anything.
I want to ask your opinion on a question that I recently received from a auditor. So I had a meeting with them in respect of the possibilities of taking their systems with their clients online, you know, where it's an easy system for their clients to submit their, you know, their business documents and their invoices and returns and receipts and all those types of things, you know, to kind of facilitate the process, but in a more effective manner. And you know, the auditor came back to me and he had a very valid point, and I want to put this to you, but in the legal industry, where he said, you know what, Eide, it's very easy for me to implement this digitized system, but at the end of the day, when I need to take this to SARS, it still needs to be printed out. So my question, and I said to him, you know what, you're 100% correct, but in a legal perspective now, right? So you would still need to, at the end of the day, print out all these documents, still put them in the folder, still attach them to your notice of motion if you're taking it to high court, because you simply cannot go ahead with a matter, especially in South Africa at the moment, you know, without having printed. It's standard practice. So do you think these types of solutions at the moment is only, you know, kind of easing people into digital processes and making certain offerings more accessible? I'm just making an example of the legal documents, for example. Now you don't need to go to an attorney. You can go onto the website and you can trust that it's a vetted document that's drafted correctly, etc., etc. Yes. What would you say, you know, kind of, is that the only thing that these types of platforms will be able to offer at the moment? Because, you know, from a different perspective, this is not going to be able to benefit people as much as we would like until the processes of institutions like the Department of Justice kind of comes to the table and say, you know, let's see how we can make this more accessible online. Because I mean, I'm thinking about more rural areas. Let's take the Transkei, for example. Those people are hundreds of kilometers away from their nearest court or from their nearest legal aid attorney. You know, we talk about infrastructure challenges and all those types of things. What do you think the role of technology, or what would you like the role of technology to be in the future in respect of these types of processes?
So, first and foremost, if there's going to be a digital transformation in legal, that's going to lead every other industry to have to be digitally transforming as well. True. You know, and it's definitely your CIPC, your LPC, your courts, you know, your deeds office. If they are not going to buy in, what we're trying to do is not going to be feasible, firstly, because not only are we spending millions on generating this app and AI, but then we still got to print the document.
Exactly. It defeats the purpose.
It still comes down to that, right? So now we're saying we want it to be accessible and affordable. So now it's become accessible, but it's still not affordable because we double processing everything, right? So in order for them to now be more pro-digitizing, we're going to need more individuals to buy into the actual first digitizing process. So we can digitize legal documents, for example, but we can't digitize a criminal case, or we can't digitize not being able to go to court with a flash drive. We have to still go to court with a whole bunch of information. You know, a printed document. So if more individuals are pro it, they have no choice but to start changing, because then there's going to be questions on why are we not changing? Just like, for example, a self-driving car. More individuals are comfortable with it, so now more technology is coming out where it's going to enable self-driving cars to be safer as time goes on, and more acceptable and more affordable for all individuals. And I think that's with any industry, legal itself. So once that becomes acceptable by the courts, then does it become legally acceptable on the whole? Then our main challenge is just convincing individuals. So right now it's convincing them to say, use our platform or look at digitizing options.
It's the first step. Yeah, it's like the first step, basically. Yeah.
You know, it's just like how people didn't want to buy stuff online. They were like, oh no, I'd rather just go into a store.
I'm going to be hacked. Everybody's going to steal my money on my credit card.
Yes, exactly that. I need to go into a shopping mall in order to buy my item.
I need to write a check.
Yes, you know, and now it's like, I can't, let me just go onto my phone and use my app, or go online and purchase my nicest clothing item and have it delivered in a week or a day or whatever that might be. Same thing. So it's really just people buying into it. So I think my main challenge right now, and for most firms that are trying to go digital as much as they can in every other industry out there, is really just getting people to buy into it. And in saying that, I feel like we all have that social obligation to help. So every firm right now should be looking into gender-based violence, firstly, because we are speaking about South Africa, looking at digitizing that aspect of it and helping individuals that don't have access to what we have access to. Transkei, for example, like you said, that needs to spend money, firstly, that they don't have to get to a close police station, to then be told, you can't write out a case here because you don't have the relevant information, because it needs to be printed out and stamped to say that it's your real ID document, you know, and just having these processes a more simpler process, because I do feel like a lot of individuals have smartphones. So as much as they may not have access to get to a place, a smartphone is there, or an individual they know that can
almost even if that's just in its basic form, like say for example just like a please call me, for example. You know, everybody you know, even something as simple as that. You know, but I think what I wanted to come to lastly before we end off our session is the role that, you know, our local and national government needs to play in that. You know, and obviously we need their buy-in, because, you know, like anything, change is only driven by normally what legislation is passed. And that, as
government
we know, is
needs
not
to adopt.
So as we know in South Africa, that's not a very expedited or a very you know, quick way to kind of get things done. You know, that's why a lot of people kind of tend to be drawn towards more disorderly conduct, you know, marching and petitioning and all those types of things. Do you think that this is something that can be convinced by, you know, our public, that our local governments and, you know, those people kind of start to need to rock up to the table and drive this change? Because I kind of feel at the end of the day, this is the only way that these types of things are, you know, once it's been into legislation, that people will be forced to do this. Because if they're not going to do it, you know, no previous generation senior council is going to kind of go paperless, etc., etc. I'm thinking about the European Union and those types of countries where, you know, they've actually brought into legislation, you know, cars that don't use fossil fuels. You know, all those types of things. What do you feel? How do you feel about this?
Which then enables, in turn, cars to come out that is fully battery operated, that is self-driving, you know, and without it being adopted and adapted to, we're never going to win. So the first thing is government needs to adopt and adapt, and that's going to take years of convincing. I mean, you know, as a woman, we're still not getting pads for free, you know, and we've been fighting this battle for years. So are we really going to get them to adapt, to commit, to actually hear us out? Or is it going to be a thing of, it's worked, so why do we
change it? Yes, exactly. It's working for everybody making money. But I mean, at the end of the day, it still remains this big injustice to, you know, your everyday person needing some assistance, or, you know, that kind of doesn't have access to go to the nearest police station to.
I feel like it's not about government anymore.
Yeah.
At this point, we're looking at approaching private sector. You know, it's not even approaching government and public sector, because you never get through to it. And I'm just speaking for my experience. I'm not speaking for everyone. And I'm just speaking from my experience in specific. Is it's better to try and do it yourself. And once it's actually working, to say, here's a working product. Here is case studies. How are you going to take this and implement it now? Because there's no point looking for that help with government. There's no point looking for that help in public sector. It's really about you as an individual, partnering with private to say, we're going to do this. We are trying to create this digital platform that hasn't been done before. Let's see how far we can get.
Yeah. Serisha, we can talk about this for the next 100 years until this actually does become a reality. Really interesting conversation and topic today, and an even better, and you are our 5th guest in our Inspirational Women in Business series. Just before I leave you, where can members of public or anybody listening or watching this episode today find you on the internet?
Every social platform that you can think of. So in my personal capacity, you can find me on Clubhouse, LinkedIn, via email, which is my name, serisha@𝐤𝐝𝐻.co.za. Facebook, if I didn't mention that already. In terms of the business, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as our website, which is www.𝐤𝐻.co.za. So app will be launching 2nd quarter this year with the MVP, so very excited about that. But there is only building on to do on it. You know, we can only hope for the best and to see what will be acceptable as we build onto this platform. So we are starting off with what is currently allowed, and we will just be working on this for the next few years to come. Yes.
100%. Serisha, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And it was lovely having you. And I think it's important that we keep on having these conversations. So to everybody listening in today, thank you so much for joining us. Serisha, thank you so much for being our guest. It was a phenomenal episode and a very interesting topic. And I think it's every person's responsibility to drive the change that they want to see, you know, and keep the conversations going and educate your fellow practitioners. And if you are one of those legal practitioners using the benefits of technology in your everyday practice, you know, please give us a like and subscribe and comment on how you are using technology, not only to your own benefit, but also to your clients' benefit. If you haven't downloaded our so please download Podbean. It is a free podcast streaming app for iOS and Android. Pop over to the store, just search for Podbean, download the app, and then search for Edify with Eide and follow our channel so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, stay safe and take care, and I'll see you then.